All right, well, it is 12:30 here in Winnipeg, so I think we can get started with the presentation, and hopefully by the time I get through the first little bit, we'll see a few more people joining us. I want to welcome everybody to today's webinar, Building Workplace Diversity and Inclusion. My name is Amber, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at the Western Retail Lumber Association, and I'll be your host and facilitator today. Before we start, I want to extend a big thank you to our webinar sponsor, Tega Building Products. Since 1973, Tega has been committed to serving the building materials industry, focused on supplying the best products on the market. Tega has a large product portfolio, including but not limited to JM Insulation, DuPont Styrofoam, Tyvek Home Wrap, Trex decking and railing, Allura fiber cement, and LP engineered wood siding. In conjunction with these standalone products, Tega also develops and produces proprietary products such as pressure-treated lumber, laminate, and vinyl flooring, as well as pre-finished siding developed specifically for a North American climate. Great people doing whatever it takes. Please visit tegabuilding.com for more information and to explore the product categories. Right. And before I introduce our speaker, I want to let everyone know that this session is being recorded and will be posted on the WRLA website. You can ask questions using the chat or Q&A function, and we will facilitate that at the end of the presentation. And I'd like to welcome Melanie Olfert. She is the instructor for Cultural Studies and Business Communication at the University of Winnipeg. For several years, she has worked as a consultant, sharing her knowledge and expertise through leadership projects and workplace training. With a background in adult education and training, Melanie is now a published writer as well as an accomplished speaker and intercultural and diversity in the workplace, collaborative communication, and leadership development. Further to her training experience, Melanie teaches cultural studies and business communication at the University of Winnipeg's Professional Applied and Continuing Education program. That's the PACE program. Her human resources background helps support diversity of the Canadian workforce and of industry by bridging gaps and collaborating together for successful career and business growth. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can give Melanie the chance to share hers.
Thank you.
And I think I've done that. Can you take over now?
We'll find out.
Perfect. Looking good to me.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Amber, I just put a little note there to you that I don't see participants on my side.
Okay, I can see them.
Okay.
I can see them all here, so they're definitely here. I'm not sure they all. I think we're just. I'll watch the chat and Q&A function for you. So, okay. Yeah, they're here. They're just maybe it's a little bit hidden on your screen, but I can definitely see them all here.
Okay, I just don't have anyone but yourself in my gallery.
Okay. I think we haven't given them the option to show their video, so that's probably why they're hidden.
Okay, so just let everyone know, I can't see your nonverbals, so like Amber said, feel free to use the chat with comments and questions, please, and she'll keep me in the loop. Welcome, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Building Workplace Diversity and Inclusion. I've been invited here to talk about this topic for almost an hour. We'll be done in about 45, 50 minutes. And with what we're going to cover, the reason for the invitation and to being able to provide this to you as a professional development opportunity is that you are an industry leader and an industry leader of people. So you're going to be encountering different languages, cultural backgrounds, age groups, genders, communication styles, in your industry and across industry in Canada. Customers, coworkers that you do business with, that you interact with, that are also represented in your communities, will be viewing the world through their own values and as they represent how they perceive and how they interpret core values of any given workplace, culture, or society as a whole. Your duty when we want to build diversity and inclusion, and of course that's your choice, but your duty when you do believe that that actually impacts the profitability, productivity, business growth, is to be able to connect with people in a way that best serves their needs, your organization's interests, and in the most efficient and effective way possible. There are a lot of benefits to diversity and inclusion in our workplace, in our businesses, in our industries, but we're going to talk a little bit about what that's all about. I just do want to acknowledge that we are gathered on ancestral lands, including Treaty 1 territory today, traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oshie, Dene, Dakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. So acknowledging this truth is important, but only a small part of cultivating strong relationships with Indigenous people. And it does happen to be Truth and Reconciliation Week this week. I just want to throw this out there, and please throw it into the chat room for us, please. On a scale of 1 to 5, how diverse is your company? How diverse is your organization? And how you define diverse is totally up to you right now. So 1 to 5 being not at all, and 5 being very diverse. And then on a scale of 1 to 5, how diverse is your work team? 1 being not at all, and 5 being there's a lot of diversity on the people on my team. And think about, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your cultural awareness as well? And have you ever taken part in any type of diversity training before? There's a lot of diversity training going on right now in Manitoba, in Canada as a whole, and that's due to recent events in Canada and in the United States. But I've been doing this for years. I've been actually delivering this types of training for a really long time. So I'm thinking, you know, it's not just that there's an increase now because of the climate in society right now, but again, often not as prevalent, and companies are not paying attention to it as much as they were before that, so a couple of years ago. You're at a 4? Thank you, appreciate that. So that's pretty high level, just 5 being the max. Thank you, appreciate your input. So today's objectives, I just wanted to have a little bit conversation with you about better understanding what diversity and inclusion is at work. And I'm going to use the short form D&I, just so I don't have to say the 2 words, because we only have a short time. And what's the business case? What are the benefits for D&I within your organization? What are the elements that make up workplace diversity? And with that focus being, you know, there are so many dimensions of diversity, but we're going to focus on gender diversity and cultural diversity, and take away some tips to continue building D&I within your business as well as your industry as a whole. So first, let's just define exactly what diversity inclusion entails. What is it? And when I define diversity, a common definition that I use is being shown here on the screen. So workplace diversity is understanding, it's accepting, and is actually tapping into and showing that you value differences between people. And those differences might include different races, ethnicities, genders, age groups, religions, disabilities and different abilities, sexual orientation, etc. And also with differences in terms of education, personalities. You probably work with or serve, provide your products to people who are more introverted or more extroverted. Skill sets, experiences, and knowledge bases as well. So diversity is really quite diverse, or it really vast with a huge span of dimensions that makes you and I and everyone else that we interact with every day different and unique. Of course, we have commonalities as well. And that's where we start looking at how do I build inclusion within my organization? Well, a great way to do that is to have a conversation, talk about what do we have in common? What a great way to start to open the door to start talking about what makes us unique now, what makes us different, right? So defining inclusion, this is one of my favorite definitions, is actually the act of ensuring that all employees of all identities feel welcomed, feel valued, and actively engaged in the organization and in the work that they do, and with the people that you're supplying your products to. An inclusive workplace ensures that each individual feels like they're a part of the collective, a part of the group, and that each member is given the same rights and the same opportunities, even though the opportunity might be different depending on job function, but there are opportunities for everyone to continue to grow, to learn new things, or even if they would like to try something new, have that opportunity. So those are my definitions of diversity and inclusion. I often use the analogy to compare it to baking a cake. Now, what do I mean by that? So when I think about D&I, you have all these ingredients that go into a cake, right? And that's diversity, all these different ingredients, salt, sugar, vanilla, eggs, everything's really different. But inclusion is the result after using all these differences in our company, on our work team, and making a really great product from it, tapping into those differences for that result, which happens to be the cake. So the final delicious cake is inclusion. But I also want to say that, beside that brilliant analogy, that simply stating the difference between D&I is diversity is a fact, inclusion is a behavior. So diversity is a fact that, oh yes, well I have different, age groups working for me. Okay, great. Or I have people of both male and female working with me. I have some are married, some are not married, some have kids, some don't have kids. I have an employee that has a identified disability, or I have employees of different ethnicities or speak different languages, right? Those are the facts, those numbers, the stats, and what I have in my organization. But what is the inclusion behavior? And to practice diversity and inclusion well or effectively is partnering these two together, because you can't just have diversity and you can't just have inclusion. They have to go together. Again, that great cake. So what's the business case for diversity? Are there benefits? I'm thinking if you joined us here today, you recognize that there are benefits to having D&I in your organization and in your industry. And maybe you're looking to build on that. So a way to build on that, though, is to first recognize that there's a business case for it. And when we're talking about D&I, I actually just finished a session on the same topic for manufacturing industry. And there's a result correlation that companies that have diversity and inclusion have a higher productivity rate. And when we have a higher productivity rate, of course, that's impacting profitability. Staff retention as well. So further benefits, it supports recruitment challenges and skill shortages. When we're tapping into demographics that people are different from myself, then I'm looking to see, okay, which groups is my business, am I not tapping into for recruitment to find people to fill positions? And so looking at some, perhaps I'm looking at the Indigenous demographic or groups represented in my community. Maybe I don't have enough women in my organization. How can I tap into recruiting more women to work in the industry or in my business? So you're looking to see, okay, I have a labor shortage. What can I do to tap into some other areas besides just posting it in the local paper or putting it on Indeed as an example? Another benefit to D&I is that it improves employee satisfaction and retention. People actually value diversity, want to work in a workplace that is inclusive of those differences. So even though you and I might work together and we have a lot of commonalities and we've known each other for a long time, I might be at a different point in my life than you are. And let's say I'm taking care of aging parents as an example. If my employer, if my organization supports me with that element of diversity as an example, where I may need to leave early, take my parent to an appointment, right? That's going to make me feel as if you respect that diversity element that I have and you're inclusive of it by providing me with some accommodation to support it. And is that going to impact my morale, my job satisfaction? Absolutely, absolutely. It also provides better client services. If I don't have a work environment that is inclusive of differences or those accommodations, sometimes there's a domino effect. And that domino effect are the people that we serve, our customer base, that are picking up on that. Because if we are respectful and inclusive of each other, we're going to work so much better together. And that's going to be a ripple effect on the customer or the general public even, or on the reputation of my business. Increases productivity engagement, broadens community engagement as well, because again, you're tapping into all areas of the local labor market in order to fill labor shortages and also to build customer base. Better collaboration, problem solving skills, because we're going to come from different perspectives, different approaches on how to work together and how to tackle problems or issues or challenges we might have. If you have a business or you work with a business where organizational values are about quality, are about safety, are about efficiency, are about customer service, or about respect, teamwork, diversity and inclusion is the foundation of all those organizational values. So they go hand in hand. You can't have a collaborative team if you don't practice inclusion. Really difficult, not that you can't do it, but to have a safer environment, people need to feel as if they're valued, as if they're respected, they're comfortable, right? And then people are working with more focus and concentration, productivity is higher, safety is increased. So many business case benefits, but in lieu of time, I'm going to move on. But these I think are the most relative, but there are more, but we'll stop there. So are you ready for a more inclusive workplace? Are you ready to build a more inclusive business? A couple of questions to pose. So I don't know the position of who's in my audience right now, but if this doesn't apply to the work that you do within your organization, pass this along. So firstly, do staff understand what's meant by inclusivity at work? What is an inclusive workplace? Do staff demonstrate behaviors that support an inclusive workplace? And I'm going to give some examples of that. How much does the management team or the business owner value the contribution diverse employees bring, such as your younger employees? Do we demonstrate inclusivity of what a younger employee is bringing forward, is contributing to the success of the business? Do you have diversity or anti-discrimination or anti-harassment policies and practices in your business? And it doesn't matter the size of your business. You don't have to have a human resource department, but there does have to be someone that perhaps is a consultant basis, whatever it might be. But there does need to be some type of policies and practices in place if you're going to foster and build diversity and inclusion. Many skills are transferable. Have you considered when hiring the must-have skills and experience rather than the nice-to-have skills and experience? So what must this successful candidate have in order to do this job well? There's always the list of nice-to-haves, of course, but again, offering opportunity for people who may not have the nice-to-haves, but do have the must-haves, such as customer service skills, such as accountability, such as knowledge of safe work, right? Things like that. Did you know? So we're going to start talking first about cultural diversity, and then we'll move into some factors about gender diversity. And again, if you have any questions, you can let me know now, and Amber will put it into the chat, or write them down, make note of them, because we'll have a few minutes at the end of the session to answer some questions. So first of all, did you know that Canada welcomes over 200,000 newcomers each year, and that number continues to grow? Now, I'll just put in a side note on here. This does not include 2020 and 2021 because of our good friend COVID. Yeah, I say that sarcastically. So immigration to Canada, of course, was much lower. It was stopped for many provinces at certain peaks of the pandemic. But overall, pre-COVID and then post-COVID, Canada is welcoming over 200,000 newcomers per year. The majority of Canada's recruitment pool, people looking for employment, looking for work, actually comes from immigration. So a lot are people who have recently immigrated to the country and they're looking for work opportunities. I work for an employment agency as well that supports internationally educated and trained professionals. And we have clients walking in our front doors that have literally been in the country for a week or two. And their first thing on their to-do list is to seek employment. So they're motivated, people are motivated when we speak to newcomers coming into the country. They're motivated, there's a hard work ethic, and there's years of past experience and demonstrated skills, okay? Did you know many industries are top employers of newcomers, internationally trained and educated professionals, including what industries? Well, definitely manufacturing, definitely transportation. Think about who you see driving the big rigs these days, right? So there are many industries, and I'm going to ask you, does that include your industry? I think about retail sales and service. Again, a huge industry of hiring culturally diverse individuals who, again, have international work experience. I'm sharing this slide with you. This slide represents Canada's immigration. Now, I'm going to first just kind of pose the question on why does Canada have a steady immigration program? I'll put that out there. Share your comments. Why do you think we even have an immigration program? And it's just not with the current government. It was like that before. Mr. Trudeau ever took office. So we've been doing this for a long time. What is the purpose of immigration programs? Any ideas? All right, so I'm going to share a couple, and one of them is Canada has a declining population. Our population is aging. We have a lot of people set to retire. Look at this, 5 million Canadians set to retire by 2035. What does that mean to your business and to your industry if you don't have a recruitment pool to draw from? And also, you don't have, let's say, construction companies looking to purchase your products, right? That's an impact. So population is aging. So definitely labor shortages. The other one is immigration. There are some industries and some occupations that still have a shortfall in labor. So transportation, manufacturing, retail, sales and services, healthcare a little bit too, food processing sector as well. And some trades as well are short in this country. We don't have enough people, skilled workers, to fill those positions. Not all industry, but many still. So that's another reason for immigration. And does it boost our economy? Absolutely, it boosts our economy. So thinking about that, that's the reason why we have the immigration stream. And then how do people come to Canada? Well, the provinces, for one, have a provincial nominee program. 80% to 85% of newcomers have come through provincial nominee programs, which is a point system. So let's say somebody's living in the Philippines and they're looking to leave the Philippines for whatever reason, and they want to immigrate to a new country. They look at Canada and they go, oh, okay, so what do I need to do in order to immigrate to Alberta? What do I need to do to immigrate to Manitoba? Whatever it might be. And there'll be points that are given for the requirements, criteria for that province. So I'm in Manitoba, so I speak to, if the newcomer speaks both official languages, English and French, they get more points. If they worked in an industry or profession, occupation, that there's a demand for skilled workers in that occupation, whatever province, we all have them, again, they get more points for that. And so that's what it's based on. And so the more points you get, the more likely you'll be approved to enter that province. And when you arrive, you're a permanent resident. 5% of the newcomer population that comes into Canada every year represents the refugee stream, only 5%. And right now, Canadian government is supporting the refugee stream with Syria, but also other countries, but primarily the majority coming from Syria. So I hope that provides some clarity on the demographics and what might be some source countries as well for immigration. Who do you have in your organization? Who's in your community, right? What do we think are some source countries for immigration? Well, India, Philippines, China have the top 3 spots pretty much for the majority of Canada. So Canadian recruiters for immigration work very closely with those countries, but they also work very closely with the business world. So they listen to employers, and the employer might go and say, I don't have anybody to drive my truck. I need to build my workforce. And then they just have to prove that you've done a really good marketing to recruit within the community and across the country. And if it's been unsuccessful, again, then the province will go to one of the top source countries to recruit in that skill set or that occupation. Other countries that are source countries include Nigeria, include Israel, Pakistan, Ukraine, Russia, Syria, Somalia, Ethiopia, Korea. And I was missing one in the top 5, Korea. So again, those are some source countries for Canada for recruiting and newcomers and that international talent that we need to continue to build up our workforce, our business. So are there any questions about the cultural diversity piece? Let me know, because there's a lot of strategies for inclusivity when we're hiring people who are culturally different, who may not have been in Canada for a long time. And that's a lot of the work that I do. So if that happens to meet a need that you might have, let me know. I'm going to move to now and talk a little bit about gender diversity. So here are some did you knows, some facts that even today, when gender discrimination in this country is at its lowest point, there are still some male-dominated industries. Companies still do very little to encourage females to join their circles, to join their workforce, and especially when it comes to top positions. So including women, what's the business case again? Including women in the business world has proven to be highly profitable for businesses. There is much paperwork about inequality that points out how devastating it can be, not only for society, but for community, as well as the success of business. Did you know that in Canada, women account for 48% of the labor force, but only 28% of industries such as transportation and manufacturing? And then I pose the question, what about in your industry? Is there a shortage? Is there equality in the building supply industry? This number has really barely shifted at all in 40 years. Even though industries are headed for labor shortages, again, as employees, as our workforce in Canada, grow older and look for retirement. And I will say this, right now, Canada, due to COVID, it is a job seekers market. So opportunities galore. And people are, for the industries that were really hit hard by the pandemic, so many employees, seasoned employees even, are experienced, when I say seasoned, are looking for opportunities to even change what they've done in terms of careers, maybe even industries. So definitely there's a huge market to draw now, again, because of the pandemic. Another fact, 2/3 of women aspire to be in management or leadership positions. However, 1 in 5 thinks that their company is not supporting this effort. So they're not talking about it, they're not promoting, they're not developing women to move into these leadership positions, or they're not gaining the position. 37% of women see promotion bias favoring male candidates. 61% say that women are underrepresented in their management positions within their organizations. So an opportunity for you to reflect on your own organization, to take a look at how many of the employees identify as female and how many of those female employees are actually in management. A strategy is here. One strategy I want to first start off with, and we're talking about gender diversity, is that women should be visible throughout the business as well as any industry when, again, is more male dominated. If you hope to recruit women, some of your recruiters should be women. If you hope to hire women, the people making the hiring decisions, should some of them be women? Not necessarily all of them, but some, yeah, have that input, right? That perspective. So one strategy to share. I also want to share, when we talk about D&I and we talk about inclusivity, it's really about communication. So whether you're communicating with your direct team, whether you're communicating with contractors, partners, other businesses in the community, and of course, your direct clients and customers, it's about using respectful language. And another term for respectful language is inclusive language. So I just put this on there as another suggested strategy to build inclusion within a diverse workforce, and some elements of what not to say, some examples, and then what could you say in order to be more inclusive. So I frequently hear people say, oh, you know, it's okay when I talk about the girls in the office, they don't mind. We were together for years. Well, they might not even realize that that term is offensive. They might not even get it, right? Maybe no one's ever talked about it before. They never had that conversation before. And maybe truly someone's not bothered by it. Okay, but we can't read what's in people's minds. And often people will put up a front in order not to cause conflict because we value peace, harmony at work so we can get our work done. But just some suggestions, again, just to bring some awareness to our session here, that when we use terms of endearment, let's actually say the person's name. Instead of saying guys, which is a super common one, I'm guilty of that one frequently too, let's refer to those people, individuals, as our workers, our team members, our coworkers, our colleagues, right? Even our customers, our clients, etc. And then back to the girls in the office as an example, workers, team members, coworkers, and again, calling people by their names or even their job titles is very inclusive. And we're hearing a lot in terms of the use of pronouns. One of the things I wanted to highlight was often I read companies' written policies and procedures, and sometimes I come across that the pronoun used is always he or him. You know, he will not engage in da 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 da. Well, again, let's just keep it to be the correct pronoun for individual people. And if I happen to have a diverse workforce, then I might be using the pronoun they, just to be gender inclusive. Ladies and gentlemen, people also often say that still. It's very traditional, of course, and it's meant with all due respect, but just a highlight to bring to our webinar that not all women, for one thing, want to be called a lady. So there's other meanings to what a lady can refer to, but again, being referred to more as colleagues, coworkers, is what would be appreciated. And ladies and gentlemen, of course, are gender specific. So just use the term, welcome everyone to the staff meeting, welcome everyone to the AGM, welcome everyone to the conference, right? Just using that, again, gender inclusive terminology. Chairman, mankind, policeman, again, to be a little bit more inclusive, it's people and person and humankind, etc. We'd love to see the expressions on your face right now. We'd love to get your insight. What do you think about that? Is that a big change? Do you feel as if your work teams will struggle or not welcome that idea or that suggestion for building inclusivity in your workplace? The thought. All right, I'll move on. Diversity Inclusive Initiative. So I wanted to close us off with providing some ideas, some strategies, some tips on what you can do to build inclusivity within your organizations. And this is primarily for people who are in a leadership role that can make some change. Be the change driver or be the D&I champion of their organization. So be that role model, walk the talk. It's a lot of changes that some companies go through to be more inclusive, and it really happens at every corner, at every level of a business. But what can you do to start that off? Demonstrate inclusion when welcoming new hires. So let's say you have 15 people who have been working with you for a long time. It's a very close-knit work team. And maybe there's diversity already represented, great. But now you're bringing in somebody new. Let's say someone retired, and you're bringing in somebody new. What can you do to help make that new hire feel like they're valued, that they're welcomed, and build that inclusivity? And I would start with the existing team. And, before that new hire even starts, just talk about what can we do, not just the first day by introducing ourselves, welcoming them, but what can we continue to do? Okay. And one of the examples would be ask them about their previous experience. Ask them, what did you do before you came to Canada? What did you do before you moved to this community or this province, right? Just kind of tapping in to what they know, and because they might want to prove themselves. So again, what can we do? Let's have that conversation with the existing work team before that new hire even starts. Partner with diverse businesses. So I'm sure you have lots of partners in the work that you do, but do you actively seek out businesses that represent underrepresented groups? So do you look to seek out, let's say, a business owner that is of Indigenous descent and want to work with them? Do you seek out women-owned businesses? Or even, maybe it's a husband and wife team, and but are you just connecting and communicating and doing the deals with the husband? Or are you getting equal representation from both, right? Or asking for that equal representation. Again, using inclusive language, walking the talk of inclusion, of respect. Maybe it's even paying attention to the type of humor we're using out in the yard, as an example. Being mindful of that, being aware of that. With inclusive language, there may be individuals who use profanity, bad words. Do you have a policy that addresses that, which would fall under the respectful workplace policy? Don't assume that everybody that's in hearing range is okay with that type of language, because it might not be, but they might say they're okay with it, but are they? Okay, how do we represent ourselves? Do we represent ourselves as a professional, respectful organization? Celebrate team diversity, success on inclusive practices. Even use it to measure performance. If you're giving performance reviews of workers, how do they demonstrate respect? How do they demonstrate inclusion? And what are your company values? Do you have organizational values that speak to respect, teamwork, quality, customer-centered, right? Safety. When we're looking at what our company values are we connecting them to D&I? Are we connecting them to diversity and inclusion? Because inclusion really is equivalent to respect. So have that a part of the performance reviews, what you put out there to the public, to your customers in terms of organizational values and mission statements, and hold employees accountable. And a great practice to start with is being aware of your intentional biases. So we talk a lot about unconscious bias these days. being aware of what or how you communicate and the actions that you might take. Be aware that, oh, I might be making an assumption. You know, if I've purposely highlighted that, oh, I have a female candidate coming for an interview next week, and then I have a couple other interviews at the end of this week or tomorrow. But I've highlighted that I have one female candidate coming in. Well, it's great that you've invited a female candidate for an interview, but why are we highlighting that they're female? You know, employers have to hire the best person for the job, and I'm totally championing to build up female or gender equality within all industries. But again, does their resume meet the qualifications of what I'm looking for? Why would I have to highlight their female? It's great that I have a female applicant, but I'm just looking right now at the qualities now that I was able to recruit some gender diversity. All right, everyone. So that brings me to the closing of what I wanted to share with you today. I want to open up the floor for questions. And Amber, I'm going to bring you in.
Yes, can you guys hear me now? Awesome. Okay, so I'll keep watching to see if we get any questions, but in the meantime, we do have a couple minutes, so I've got a couple questions that I've got here. So Melanie, thank you so much for that great presentation. So one of my questions is, if you're in a business that's in a small community and the diverse pool of potential workers is just not there, what advice would you give to someone in that situation?
Okay, so we have a smaller community and there's not a huge labor pool to pull from. What are we defining as diversity, right? Maybe we don't have a lot of newcomers settling in our community, right? So again, diversity could be just mean different skill sets. Diversity could just mean different people of age groups, age diversity. So recognizing first what is actually diversity and what does that mean to your business. And then if you have tried to recruit in your local area, but you haven't been very successful, you know, touch base with more local areas, because they may have agencies. I think about, I'm in Manitoba, and I think about some of the programs that the provincial government is doing to encourage settlement of newcomers, so new immigrants, to settle in rural areas in the province. So there's work that's being done to build up those demographics. Again, where now it's boosting the economy in those areas, but also bringing more recruitment pool or talents into the local area. So there's a few strategies around that, but first define what you mean by diversity and know who is looking for work in your immediate area. And do they meet any of those requirements? And then reach out to an agency or the provincial government within your region.
Awesome. We'll have a couple questions that have popped up now, so that's great. The first one is, can you recommend any free or inexpensive material to use for developing an inclusive policy for my company?
Well, there are materials out there, and the first one I think of is with the City of Edmonton. They have a really good one. I haven't looked online for it for a little while. You can definitely reach out to Amber and I can see if I can find it and then send an email to you. But when we're looking at developing an inclusion policy or a D&I framework, it has to be catered to the type of business you have. And there's a lot of details. I work with Manitoba Start, and we offer a D&I framework session. The executive director has actually published a framework on how to do that. And, they're not expensive at all because we're not for profit. So perhaps even if you want to reach out to Amber, I can connect you with that as well. Might be a good idea. What are some tips for balancing the line between hiring a diverse team and hiring the best candidates? Well, there's really no balancing the line. For any business in any industry, it's really about hiring the best person for the job. I mean, I have an HR background, that's exactly what it is. However, I want to make sure that I'm practicing inclusivity by reaching out to all demographics, including underrepresented groups. So looking at different recruitment tools, like how I'm recruiting, where I'm putting my job posting as an example, connecting with agencies that support persons with disabilities as an example, but making sure that I'm recruiting, casting my net out as much as I can. And then how are you wording your job postings, your recruitment ads, right? Do you put in there that you value and you encourage individuals that identify under the Employment Equity Act? So you're encouraging women, Indigenous persons, visible minorities, and persons with disabilities to apply. That's another great way to advertise to diverse groups. But then you've done that. Now you're looking to see, okay, well, I've done that. Now who's the best person for the job? But allowing the opportunity to interview diverse candidates, and then your final selection, it's about hiring the best fit. Absolutely. In terms of knowledge and skill set.
So we probably have time for a couple more questions. If people have anything, feel free to add them to the chat. I'll add one more to the discussion. Melanie, if someone isn't in charge of changing the way things are done at the business level, what can a supervisor do to build inclusion at work?
Right. And I go back to my leadership ideas, but the number one would be when first you be the role model. Absolutely. If you're not the change maker, you're not the GM, you're not the HR manager, you're not the business owner, you don't sit on a board, whatever it might be, you're not the change maker and decision maker, then you be the role model for a respectful workplace. You be the role model that recognizes that you value that diversity on your team. And what are you doing to tap into that diversity? If you're holding a staff meeting and someone says to the female employee, would you mind grabbing us some coffee? Or would you mind refilling the water? Speak up. Absolutely speak up. And yes, that happens all the time. So be the person to speak up and say, oh, you know what? I'll go get the water, or I'll go get some fresh coffee, and you do it. 4 also is talking about it, having conversations about it as well. Right now we're in the week of Truth and Reconciliation. On Thursday, it's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Are you going to have a conversation about that with your work teams? Ask people, what does this mean to you? Have those conversations, make the decisions. Is our business up and running? Are we closing for the day? But if you are up and running, again, I promote to build some awareness of what that means. Because it's not just about Indigenous people, it's about all of us living in Canada. So again, it shows you have that value in what D&I and respect at work looks like and in our communities.
Maybe building on that, how do you handle, speaking up in that situation? Do you have any tips, practical tips for people who maybe, want to be prepared for the next time that happens when they witness it in the workplace or, in a business function?
I think about it, it's, recognizing that it's not something you talk about. Again, I don't know who's with us, but maybe it's not something you talk about every day. And you're afraid that you're going to say something wrong, or you're going to phrase it incorrectly or inappropriately, right? Be patient with yourself. It's a growth in process. It takes time. Do some research as well. And it might be just Googling diversity and inclusion and finding out what resources you pull there. And of course, looking to see if there's a framework, or what does it mean, a diversity and inclusion framework. But I think it's just about looking at your own values, self-reflecting on what's important to you in a safe and respectful workplace, and connecting the business case, connecting the benefits for your business, for your industry, connecting those, because that's what people get. We'll be more sustainable if we practice D&I. We'll be more profitable, more productive, more efficient if we practice more inclusive strategies. And again, those strategies are not just the hiring manager. Those strategies are absolutely everyone who supports, supervises, and have those leadership roles.